Boker Tov. Today's Daf Yomi is Yevamos 116. The Gemara was discussing a dispute between Abaye and Rava. We know that the halacha is like Abaye B'Yal Kagam in 6 cases in the Shas, and this is not one of those 6 cases. But the Gemara was discussing if there's a divorce, whether and it was given in the name of one person, whether or not we need to be concerned if there's more than one person with that name. Abaye says we need to have such a concern. Maybe there's 2 people by the name Yitzchak Reish Karuta who are floating around. Rava says, no, we don't have to be concerned that there's more than one person by such a name. So the Gemara says, let's give a proof for Rava. I'm a Rava, 3 lines from the bottom on 115b. Hold on 1 second. So the Gemara says, let's give a proof for Rava. At the bottom of 115b. I'm a Rava, Minah. How do I know that we don't have to be concerned that there's more than one person by that name? Anu Trey Shtari, there were once 2 contracts, the Nafki B'Mechuza, that they were issued in Mechuza, Ksibahu, and on these 2 contracts, one was written, Chavi Bar Nanai, one was written that you can make a claim against Chavi Bar Nanai, and the other one is Nani Bar Chavai, Va'agli Bahu, Rava Bar Avua, and Ravi Bar Avua collected from them Zuzi, collected money from them. Chavi Bar Nanai, V'Nanai Bar Chavi, B'Mechuza Shlichatuva. These names are very common in Mechuza, and yet he said no, you could go collect the money. This is therefore proof. For that position of Rava that you don't have to assume that there's more than one person with that name and you could collect it. Now, their argument had actually been not about money, but it had been about a get, which is a case of permitted and prohibited. So nevertheless, we make the adjustment from a case of permitted and prohibited to a monetary case. The Abaye, and why is Abaye generally says you have to assume that there's more than one person. Why in this case does Abaye? Why in this case did they allow the money to be collected? So it explains Abaye, top of 116a, he says, well, because in this case, what would we have to be concerned? The guy has the note. What do you have to be concerned about? If you're worried that he just picked up this note that was lying around on the ground and now that's why he's forcing this man to collect it, Mizr Zayirve, the person who has a note is going to be very careful about it. He's not going to let it drop. And Ego Picadon, and if you want to say maybe he just gave to somebody by that same name as a deposit, even the Shmei Kishmei, since he has the same name as this other person, he's not going to leave it as a deposit with him. He's not going to be that silly. So therefore, since that's the case, my Amris, what's the other thing you're going to say that you gave him the note and now he doesn't really have the right to collect from it? Dilma Masarway, is that you're concerned that maybe you gave it to the person with this name and you just asked him to hold it for you and he can't really collect from it? Osios Niknos B'Masira. You're saying that the concern is that he doesn't really own it. Well, no, a contract can be handed over by handing it over, the person can have the authority. So therefore, Abaye says, in this case of a monetary case, you're allowed to collect it. Gemara says, Ahu Kita Dishtakach Besura. Again, we're trying to figure out the dispute between Abaye and Rava. There was a get that was found in Surah, Viksiv Be'achi. And the get had the following thing in it. Besura Masa, Ana Anan Barchia, Nardai, Patres V'Tarach Poni Antasi. So in Surah, I, Anan Barchia, who's a Nahardian, I divorced my wife. Ubadku Rabbana Misura V'Nardai. And the rabbis checked from Surah all the way to Nardai. V'Ave Anan Barchia Achrina. There was one person, and then there was another one. There was only one other. This other person was Anan Barchia Mechagra who was in Nardai. So do we have to be concerned that was him? We also saw, and then the witnesses came, Amor, Ta'u Yoma, that day that the get was written, Kiyachtavu Geta, Anan Brachia Mitagra, Gabanavu. That this person, Anan Brachia Mitagra, he was with us in Narda. And so therefore, clearly, he wasn't in Surah. So therefore, it must have been a different person. So you can rely on the get that was written in Surah. So the Gemara says, Amar Abaye, Afrodidi, Abaye says, even according to me, the Amina Chashina, and who I say in general have to be concerned that just having the name is not enough. Acharo Chashina. Here, we're not going to be concerned. Daka Amri Sahali di Ben Ardai, because witnesses say that he wasn't in Surah, he was in Ardai. So therefore, my Bai Basura, how would he be in Surah? And Amar Rava Afrodidi, the Chashina, even according to me, in general, I'm not concerned that there could be another person with the same name floating around. Here we have to be concerned. Dilma begemoa parcha. Maybe he flew there on a camel. He had a secret camel that can fly him. Rinami bikfitza. Or else maybe Rashi says b'shem. This is like the Gemara Chagiga when the four went to the paradise and one said they saw Hashem. They used the shame. They used the name of God to get there. They used magic. Or Inami Mile Masar, or else maybe he was in Ardai, but he asked his agents to go write it in Surah. Kedamru Rav was Safri, like Rav told the scribes. Ravuna was Safri. Ravuna told his scribes, Ki Isnechu B'Shilei, Ksuva B'Shilei. And what did he write? He said when basically your wife is when you're in Shili, that's where you should write it. Even though I asked you to write it someplace else, you should write it wherever you are. And I forgot the Mimser and Mili Behine, even though I asked you to write it when I was in Hini, since you wrote it in Shili, that's what you should say. And when you're writing it in Hini, Ksuvu Behine, I forgot the Mimser and Mili Beshili. Always write the place where you are, not where I asked you to write it. So therefore, Rabbi says in this case, ironically, he and Abaye switch, and he would not agree with Abaye. Gemara says, remember yesterday we are discussing the case of the shumshmi, of the sesame seeds, where the depositor claimed, you never gave me back my sesame seeds, and the person who had the deposit said, yes, I did, and so do we have to be concerned that he switched them out? Rav Yossi Amar Lo Chashinan says there's no concern that he switched them out, and so therefore the person has to give the sesame seeds back to the person who claims that they were his. Whereas Ravina Amar Chashinan says, no, we can be concerned that he switched them out, and these are different sesame seeds. And that's the halacha like Ravina. So now our Mishnah had said that if there was a dispute between him and her, kitata beino beina, if there was a dispute between him and her, then under those circumstances, we're not going to believe her if she says her husband is dead. So that's what our Mishnah had said. So Gemara says, what's the definition of if there's a fight between him and her? So Amar Yehuda Amar Shmuel Ba'omeres Labala Gersheni, where she said to her husband, divorce me already. Well, that's the definition of a fight. It says the Gemara, Kol Nami Amar Achi. Everybody speaks like that. Look at Rashi. Rashi says, oh, there's no Rashi on that, but the Gemara says no Rashi here. But the Gemara says everybody else says this in a fit of anger. In a fit of anger, everybody says that. So therefore, that's not an indication that there's a kitata between them, because she yelled something when she was upset. No. So Ella Bomeres Labawa, but rather, what are we referring to? Where she says to her husband, where she says Labawa Girashtani, where she says that her husband has already divorced her. So that's the case where she's making such an argument that she already claimed she was divorced. So under those circumstances, we're not going to believe her if she now says her husband is dead. The Gemara says, but why not? Why don't we believe her if she says her husband divorced her? A woman who says a woman who says that she was divorced from her husband, we do believe her. In those days, a person would be very careful before saying a lie. And so we see from here that we would believe her. So the Gemara says, no, but Omeres Gerashtani b'fnei Ploni uPloni v'she'elna v'amru lo hayu dvarim. No, she says, I was divorced in front of these two witnesses, and we asked them, and they said it never existed. That's an indication that she has a katata, that she was in a fight with her husband, and we don't believe her. Now she says her husband's dead. Gemara says, my time with the katata. What's the reason if there's a katata, if there's a fight between them, we don't believe her? He says because she hates him so much, she's going to lie, and she wants to become prohibited to him forever. So if she marries somebody else, she'll never be able to go back to her husband. So she knows the halacha. Shimi Bar Ashi says no. Anytime where there is a fight, she's going to make a calculation. She's going to imagine that he's dead, even if he's not. Rashi says, anytime where she sees her husband was in danger, she's not going to have the perspective of saying, well, maybe he didn't die, and I'm not allowed to get married. The whole Vasanyale, she hates him so much, so she's going just to assume, basically she has a positivity bias. She hates him so much, she's going to assume he's dead. She's going to hope for the best. So in that case, because she wants to get out of the marriage. What's the difference between the two approaches? Are we concerned that she's going to lie out of hatred, or we're concerned she's going to basically see the facts differently? The distinction between them is the argel hu katata, where he started the fight. He's the one who doesn't want to be married to her. So in a situation where the fight, so Rashi doesn't tell us exactly here, but Tosfos tells us. According to the one who says that we're worried she's going to lie, I say so under those circumstances, where she's going to be afraid to lie. Whereas according to the one who says b'didami, since there's a fight, then even if there's just a little bit off, she's going to. So in the first case where he's the one who's doing it, she's not going to lie because she's saying maybe he's going to change his mind. But in the case where if the concern is the dummy way, so under those circumstances, we're still going to have that possibility. So she's still going to see the matter differently, and that's how she'll basically end the marriage. So we saw this yesterday. What about one witness in a time of battle? And now we're seeing one witness in a time of a fight. What's the law there? Do we say what's the reason why in general we believe one witness and they come to say that the man is dead? Because something that was something that was perhaps going to be revealed, the person's not going to lie about it. Here too, we're not going to lie. What's the reason why a person is believed, why one witness is believed, is because she's daiko mitzvah. She's going to always investigate the matter carefully. And here, because there's so much fighting, even though one witness comes, she's not going to investigate it carefully, so therefore we're not going to believe him. So the Gemara says, we leave this question unresolved. What happens if it's one witness who comes? Rabbi Yehuda says she's never believed unless she comes with her garment torn, crying. So Tanya, Amrlo Rabbi Yehuda Lidvarecha Pikechas Tinase Shotelo Tinase. According to your logic, a woman who is Pikechas, who knows how to make herself look like she's mourning and crying, either maybe she knows the appropriate way to act. She doesn't have social disorder where she doesn't know how to act properly, but meaning only somebody who knows how to mourn properly can remarry. Some say no, only one who knows how to deceive you can remarry by crying for her husband. But if she's a shota, but if she's just doesn't have the ability to either cry or she doesn't know how to maneuver the legal system, she's not going to be able to be remarried. It doesn't make sense. So the Gemara says, both cases they can remarry. That's what the Rabbanan said back to Rabbi Yehuda. So somebody came to the court of Rabbi Yehuda and Amrulay Safti Balech, Karim Anech, Satrim Azech. So when the woman was coming to the court of Rabbi Yehuda and they knew Rabbi Yehuda was tough, he wasn't going to believe her when she said that her husband died. So they told her what to do so that Rabbi Yehuda would allow her to get married. So they said, eulogize, cry, tear your garments, remove your hairpiece. So the Gemara says, Apua Shikra, they're teaching her how to lie before Rabbi Yehuda. And the Gemara explains, no, Inu Karabanan, they held like the Rabbana, that she was really allowed to get married. And they said, act like this so that you can remarry. Aruch LaNer says that from here we see, if there's a judge, is a dayan who's not acting properly, he's being too strict, you can help the litigant or help the person who needs the heter to maneuver the judge in such a way so that the judge will give a ruling in your favor. Beisil says, when do we say we believe the woman who says that her husband died? Only in a specific situation where she came during the harvest season, Ubaosa Medina, and then the guy died in the same place as her, and it was exactly like an incident that happened. It was a very, very specific case. That's the only case we believe her. The Beis Shammai says no. It's whether it comes from the harvest season or from the olive harvest or from the grape harvest, or even if they come from another place. When the sages said that it's only this person, they were just giving a real life example. And Chazir Beisil Horos Beis Shammai, Beisil actually recanted and said like Beis Shammai that it doesn't have to be the exact same case. And the Gemara is going to tell us what that case was. Tanya, but first the Gemara is a brisa where they said Amram Beis Shammai Beisilo that this is Beis Shammai's argument, a very sophisticated argument. You're saying Eliel Katzir, you said only in the grain harvest. What about Eliel Katzir Chitim, Katzir Sarminai? What if her husband died during the barley harvest? Eliel Katzir boats there. You're only telling me about the harvest of the grapes. Mosek, go there, Oder Minai, and how do I know the harvest of the olives, the figs, or the dates? So what happened was Beis Shammai, the actual incident where they believed the woman, that was during the harvest of the wheat. But it's the same law for anything. I mean, we believe the woman. And also, in that case, the incident happened in that same country, and it's the law all around. Well, Beisil, what does Beisil say? But also Medina, in the same Medina, Beisil says if they're in the same place, then a lot of people recognize the husband. She's going to be afraid to lie. From Medina, but from one place to another place, Medina Acharas, people are not found going back and forth. Well, Mirsis, she's not going to be afraid. She's going to lie. And Beis Shammai says no. There's a caravan that goes back and forth. So even if her husband died in a different place, we believe her if she says he died, because people are going back and forth, and everybody will know if their husband's still alive. What was the incident that was the catalyst for when the rabbis allowed us to believe her? So what was that incident? So the Amar of Yehuda Amar Shmuel. So Shmuel told us Shofei Katzir Chitin. It was the end of the wheat harvest. And 10 men went to harvest the wheat. One of them was bit by a snake, and he died. And the woman came and told the court, and they found that she was correct. So that was the moment they realized, wait, we're not believing the woman. Why not? She's telling us accurate testimony. So at that moment they said, Aisha Sha'amra, is because they said, Aisha Sha'amra Meis Bali Tinasi, Meis Bali Tishem, that we believe the woman. And Tosfos explains, Mishim Dechazu, Dike Gunat Fei, Moya Ma'aminamoso. So Tosfos says, if we're not going to believe her, she's going to become an aguna. There'll be more agunos. She'll be chained, and she won't be able to remarry. So therefore, that's why we believed her. Maybe this dispute between Beis Shammai and Beis Hillel is the same dispute as Rabbi Hananya ben Akiva, who they have an argument elsewhere. Because what do they argue about? The Beis Shammai Titania, well, Yisa Adam Mechatas, we had this Gemara Chagiga, a person's not allowed to take the Mechatas or Efer Chatas, this is the ashes of the red heifer mixed with the water of the red heifer. You're not allowed to carry them via Viram Biyardain, you're not allowed to cross the Jordan River with them Ubisfina. And you're not allowed to take them on a Jordan across the boat. You're not allowed to throw them from one side to the other. You can't float them on the water. You can't cross the water with them on the back of an animal or on the back of your friend. Elam Kena, your glove, no ghost bekarka. Your feet have to be in the ground. But you can't take them across a bridge. And then we say Echad Yardain, the Echad Shanaros, where the Jordan River applies to all the rivers. So this was the ruling of the rabbis. So Rabbi Hananya ben Akiva says, "Lo amru el yardain ubisfina." Now, what's the only thing that's prohibited on the Jordan River on a boat? And it was an incident that happened. The Gemara is going to tell us in a few lines what the incident was. So they said it's only a problem to transport the ashes of the red heifer in the Jordan River on a boat. So the Rabbanan say it's across the board going to be a problem to carry the ashes over water, not just on a Jordan River on a boat. They all like Beis Shammai, who says that just because there's a specific case, we expand it out. The Rabbi Hananya ben Akiva limited to that specific case. Maybe he says Beis Hillel. So the Gemara says no. I can also say like Beis Hillel. Why? Because even though there's a specific incident where Beis Hillel, and we say no, it's expanded, and Beis Hillel says that a specific incident, what we learn out from there is limited. No, what's the reason why Beis Hillel says that you can't believe her if she says it's from another country? Because the whole concern, the whole reason we believe her is because we assume she's afraid to lie. B'makam karov mirsis, b'makam rachok lo mirsis. If it's a close place, she's going to be afraid. If it's a faraway place, she's not going to be afraid. But hacha, in this case, there's nothing to do with fear. Mali Yardain, Mali Sharnaros. What's the difference between the Jordan River and all the other rivers? It's exactly the same concern that maybe the red heifer there's a dead body there. So Rabbi Hananya ben Akiva Omer, even though I limited to this exact case, I still say like Beis Shammai, who says in the case of the woman that it's not just limited to that case. What's the reason why Beis Shammai believes her there? Because he says she's going to investigate. She's going to make sure her husband's dead before she remarries because she knows the consequences. And so for that reason, Mali Makam Kar, Mali Makam Rachok. Well, if the whole reason is, excuse me, make sure she investigates it carefully. What do we care if it's close by or far away? So the Gemara says, well, Hacha Mishum Maisa Shahaya Biyardin B'Sfina Dabi Maisa Gazer Rabbanan. But here in this case, because it was an incident that happened in the Jordan River and on a boat, where that was a specific case, that's why the rabbis made a decree. They made a decree because of a specific case. But B'Sharna was still Maisa, but in other rivers where the incident didn't take place, so Gazer Rabbanan. Rabbis didn't make a decree. Well, what was this incident? Gemara explains. There was an incident with a person who was bringing the ashes of the red heifer, the Efer Chatas, Biyardin, he was crossing the Jordan, Ubisfina on a boat. There was a piece of the dead body underneath the karkar shalsvin, underneath the ship. And the whole red heifer's ashes were ruined as a result. And red heifer's ashes are very rare. And therefore, at that moment, they made such a degree. So we'll continue now. We have a few minutes. We'll just continue. Let me just